Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nikin, Raval, as mentioned. This is Harry Lee, Head of Data Governance and Transformation at the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and Echo Young, Head of Artificial Intelligence at Aberdeen. It's very rare to right time the market, but this week we had 2 Nobel Prizes awards, one in physics and one in chemistry, relating to machine learning and the use of AI for the prediction of the shape of proteins. So, can we transition from predicting protein shapes to asset prices? I guess we'll find out. First, I'd like to take a temperature check of the room and see where people are with AI. So, if we can turn to a poll to start with. Okay. So, the question here, and the numbers here are just starting numbers, but what is your firm's biggest challenge on AI adoption? Talent and human capital, technology, or company and culture? And this is real time, so, let's see if we can get some autocorrelation in it. Or mean reversion, as it seems to be the case. Okay. All right, so technology, perfect. You're in the right place. Okay, so technology and talent. Company culture, it seems to be that people are very keen on adopting AI where possible. That's great to hear. Okay, so let's move towards the panel and get some insights from our panelists. So let's start with you, Echo. And let's start foundationally. What does AI mean to you?
Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's a pleasure to be here to share. I'm not going to tell you whether I use ChatGPT to prepare for this panel. You can find out later, right? I think when it comes to AI for Aberdeen, we have 3 mission statements. 1, we believe that AI can help us to improve efficiency, right? You can automate routine and time-intensive tasks. And then secondly, we can use AI to free up capacity so our talented people can focus more on value add. Lastly, but not least, we want to drive better performance because we are in the investment business. We want to make our people better at their jobs. Just bring this to life. What do I mean? Right? So in Aberdeen, we have 23 high-level use cases across the company, and they're in different stages of the life cycle. And 11 are live use cases, ranging from general productivity to specific tasks, such as non-regulatory translation or automated complaint identification. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Echo. Harry, how about on your side? What does AI mean to you?
Okay, so likewise, before I begin, I want to thank the organizers for having me here and giving me a chance to share my thoughts on AI at this forum. I'm going to take a slightly different slant from Echo and to answer this question, what AI means to me. But the crux of my response is that AI means change. Let me elaborate. As a technology, AI is actually a technology, and there are 2 dimensions that you want to think about when you're dealing with technology. The first dimension is capability. The second dimension is accessibility. So on capability, I think AI has been around for quite some time, but the progress in recent years has been fairly astonishing. AI is outperforming humans in several tests. You spoke about Nobel Prize earlier, but even in academic tests like math, medical licensing exams, AI is outdoing humans. Then there is actually there's very clear progress in weak form of AI. What I mean by weak form of AI is narrow AI, where you have one technology that does one task to high competence. So we're seeing that it's been very clear. Things like image recognition, things like image classification. With ChatGPT, there's now talk of automatic general intelligence, where you have one single technology that can do a range of different applications, solve different problems to a high degree of competence and proficiency. So I think whether or not, even if we ultimately don't reach the state of what I call artificial sentience, we have to acknowledge that the progress in AI has been quite formidable so far already. So the other thing that I would say is that AI as a technology has never been more accessible. With ChatGPT and other foundation model applications, AI has been brought to the masses. You don't need to be a computer scientist, you don't need to be a data scientist, you can use, you can benefit from AI. So we are living in exciting times. There's little doubt that this highly accessible, highly capable technology will find its way into our lives. How that would actually work is the technology will either augment the way we work, or we will actually transform the way we work to accommodate the technology, to leverage on the technology. We're going to transform our own processes and the way we interact. So my point here is that AI is something that the sector as a whole has to engage deeply with, given its ability for transformative change. So just like all the people before us, our forebears at the cusp of each industrial revolution, I think the question before us all here today is, how do we integrate AI, to do better, to achieve better outcomes and make lives better? And that's what AI means to me.
Okay, thank you very much, Harry. We've touched on a lot of positive things about AI and places where we can use it in the firm. And so maybe you can elaborate more on the opportunities of AI within your firm or within financial markets. But it's difficult to exist within the space of AI and not hear about some of the risks and dangers of AI as well. Now, I don't want to talk about catastrophic consequences or anything, but maybe we could talk about within the space of financial markets. What are the opportunities and risks that you see in AI, Echo?
Well, definitely we see a lot of opportunities. Firstly, we think AI can enhance the speed and agility of investment decision making. Right? What do I mean by that? Firstly, it will definitely enhance operational efficiency. As I mentioned earlier, we can use AI to automate a lot of manual tasks and save time. Right? And secondly, AI that can help us to enhance our research workflow. Because our analysts now don't have to spend so much time to collect data, they will be able to spend more time to synthesize information and in faster manner and reach conclusion faster as well. Right? The third point is in the risk management. With AI, there will be more advanced analytics, which can help us to generate more timely and robust insight for portfolio management. Now, the second point about opportunity is in the availability of potentially more and more detailed data, and that will lead to new market opportunities and investment strategies. And lastly but not least, AI can create or lead to deep personalization of services and products we can provide to our clients. So that's a rosy part of AI. Now I have to touch on the darker side.
Please do.
Not very serious, but I think when there's opportunities, there's always challenges and risks, right? I think the risk of over-relying on AI models, number one, data, right? Data quality, because those AI models rely heavily on data, right? If the data is biased or inaccurate, whatever prediction coming of that will be accurate as well. And the second one is transparency. Right. So most of the AI models, especially the deep learning models, they act as a black box. It's very difficult to understand how they arrive at a conclusion, even if the conclusion is correct. Right? There are techniques like adding explainability to the AI models, but we're not 100% there yet. Right? Hence, I think it's very important to always have a human overlay in the final decision making when we use those AI models.
Thank you very much, Echo. That gives a taste for the opportunities, and certainly the data and the opacity or black box aspect we'll touch on again later on. But Harry, from your perspective?
From my perspective, opportunities start, drawing from what I said earlier, I feel strongly that organizations will have to engage with AI quite deeply. There's a need to systematically identify use cases where AI has a role in your organization. And then as you work through each of these use cases, I think you would uncover more opportunity to generate a deeper transformation. So that's one area of opportunity that I want to highlight to everybody here. So as you work through your use cases, you'll find that most organizations, AI use cases will fall into two buckets. The first bucket, these are productivity enhancing use cases, basically doing what you already know how to do it better in terms of speed, in terms of comprehensiveness. my experience with these use cases in this bucket is that there's actually also an opportunity to undergo a deeper business process re-engineering. You're gonna use this desire to embrace AI as a trigger, and in the process, you're gonna find time and cost savings just by relooking existing processes. So that's one thing to think about. It will definitely require significant change management, and the initial cost will be quite intimidating, but it will enable significant transformation. In the second bucket, these are use cases that really make your organization perform and achieve your mandate better. These are the kind of use cases that give your organization the edge over your peers if you successfully pull them off. I think these are the use cases that organizations should create space and preserve space to go and pursue. Why do I say that? Because these are likely the ones that require a bit more thought. What I mean by that, I'll give you an example. Is your organization's secret sauce the data that you have? Or is it some unexplored analytics that you can do, that you can apply on that same data to derive new insights to make you do your job better? Or is it simply just a combination of both? So that's something to think about, that those are some opportunities there. Lastly, on opportunities, the implications on both buckets of use cases is that the composition of skills that you require in your organization will change. This is also an opportunity for you to relook your workforce composition and structure. So that's the third opportunity that I think worth highlighting here. Of course, also turning to risk. I think when generative AI took the world by storm, it's quite clear to me there were three new risks. They were data leakage, hallucination, and copyright infringement. These are three new risks. These three new risks are on top of existing AI risks that we know very well in the areas of fairness, ethics, accountability, accuracy. So those are well known. So the point here I want to make is that there are a lot of risks to think about when you're dabbling in AI. And I think organizations will need to prioritize how you want to manage your risk. To prioritize how you want to manage your risk, I think I would say that you have to think about how your organization is adopting AI, especially generative AI. The point here is generative AI brought AI to the masses. It has expanded your surface area risk significantly. It's different from old AI, where a few people are using it. The new generative AI, more people are using it, so your surface area risk has expanded. So that's something to think about. If your focus in AI is really on productivity enhancement use cases, then it's unlikely that you'll be doing complicated things like training foundation models, or with your own data. So you can forget about thinking about work that way. If you are really about purchasing models off the shelf, I think what you need to think about and focus on is really hallucination, and also how you prevent leaking data back to the model provider. So that's something that's an area of risk that I think people need to actively manage. And then you should focus on how you interpret the outputs, whether the data that you put in to your AI models are fair, unbiased. And then, as Echo said, just making sure that you have human accountability right at the end of it.
Thank you, Harry. We've outlined some of the risks. Let's get to the meat of the subject, perhaps, and look at kind of how do you actually use, and this is to Echo, how do you actually use AI within the investment process and for investment? You've discussed productivity and enhancing individual contributors. How do you think it actually can be used for investment itself?
Right. So in Aberdeen, when we look at AI for investment, there are three main buckets. The first one is efficiency gain through automation, as I mentioned. Right. The second one is more on the traditional AI and the machine learning models, which existed a long time ago. So we do use statistical models, analysis for portfolio management, like regression and clustering, right? You can name AI as well. And the third area which is the more popular in the recent 2 years, is Gen AI, right? So we are in the preliminary stage of strategically leveraging this technology to deliver efficiencies and enhance investment process. Right? Just to give you some examples, so a few months after Microsoft released ChatGPT, we have launched Aberdeen GPT. That basically is the version of GPT you can use in a very secure manner, make sure the data is leaked outside the organization, And as an extension to that, we also give access to all employees the web version of the Copilot. And we're also exploring use cases for the new Microsoft 365 and expect a full rollout in the next 18 months. So that's more on the general productivity, or that's across the whole investment team. On top of that, Aberdeen and University of Edinburgh has established this industry and academic partnership back in April 2022. So within that partnership, we launched Center for Investing Innovation, right, to promote innovation in the investment sector. And AI is one of the main work streams. So far, we have funded 2 projects under this work stream. One is to create a prototype of a Gen AI-powered research companion, which joins up a customized large language model with a statistical brain. The second project that's funded is to create a risk screening tool that rebuilt in the AI and machine learning architecture for our fixed income investment team. Yeah.
Okay, so we can see some direct applications of AI there. Harry, around for regulators and supervisors, how's AI being used?
Yeah, so I talked about edge use cases and productivity enhancement use cases. So let me focus on the edge use cases that central banks and financial regulators are dabbling in. And I'll try to do a chronological sweep. So central banks and financial authorities have always been big users of data and advanced analytics, including things like machine learning. In central banking, a key goal, I think all of you would know, is to get forecasts of growth and inflation right. So that our monetary policy settings are appropriately calibrated for the policy horizon of relevance. There's a rich literature in the amount of work that we do to use traditional AI predictive techniques to get our forecast right. Standard techniques that we use are supervised machine learning techniques like regression and classification. Then as we move forward, there's also work done to account for some of the non-linearities and discontinuities that we see in real-world phenomena. So we've been using advanced analytics to try to capture some of that. And then more recently, some of the work has been about trying to derive insights from big data, novel data sets, unstructured granular data sets to get a better read of the pulse of the economy so that we can better inform the formulation of monetary policy. So that's on central banking. In financial supervision and regulation, I think the same need for good forecast is true, especially in the area of stress testing, so that we can get a good assessment of the impact on key financial and metrics and regulatory metrics that we care about. Traditional AI, again, has quite a big role to play here. Another area that I think worth highlighting that we've been doing is when we perform network analysis to trace contagion and spillovers, one important problem to solve has always been entity resolution. So that once you know the names of the different players in the network, you're able to build up how the interrelations between the different counterparties. So that's very important. Entity resolution algorithms today are actually quite advanced and benefit a lot from AI techniques. It's no longer just a simple keyword search. So that's another area of work. Clustering and classification techniques actually are quite used quite prevalently in scam detection, in anti money laundering kind of use cases. Many financial authorities are looking into this thing here and abroad. And then I want to say that natural language processing, before large language models came about, there was a lot of work done in natural language processing just to better improve risk monitoring. We can listen to newsfeed, we can listen to social media, pick up topics that are of interest to us, gauge the sentiment, which could portend negative developments that are of interest to us. Then we have the era of large language models, right? Large language models open up a different set of possibilities for us. Today's supervision entails a fair bit of going through a lot of documents to trace how an event has evolved over time, or to compare across many supervised entities whether there are common issues at this point in time. Now, my point is, if LLM applications can help us get supervisory insights faster, our supervisors don't have to spend so much time doing information wrangling. They'll be able to focus on having insights-based discussions and engagements with our supervised entities on risk management strategies, as well as what good outcomes look like. And then the last point I'll make is that we are like you. We're also trying to use Gen AI to boost our productivity. Things like use of tools to, transcribe things, to code, to summarize. These are some of the things that we're experimenting with.
Thanks, Harry. Echo, you mentioned practical use cases, clustering you mentioned. You also mentioned regression, so unsupervised, unsupervised. And then we also, presumably there's other AI techniques being used in there as well, machine learning or deep learning. But as an investment firm, how do you balance incorporating AI alongside kind of domain expertise as well? How do you balance that?
I think it's very important to balance the AI-driven skill set talents with financial market expertise, right? I think there are two things we need to do here. One is a collaborative approach. We need to encourage collaboration between the AI specialists, data science, etc., with our financial markets experts, so that we can actually integrate those techniques and tools effectively, right? And the second one is education, right? We need to provide upskilling programs for employees so that we can enhance their capabilities. So just give you an example, in Aberdeen, we have an AI task force, which I'm part of. So this task force is open for everyone to contribute ideas and work on opportunities. So within this task force, we have one subgroup focusing on education for our employees, and they will curate a list of training programs which will be available on our e-learning platform. And the other thing I want to highlight on this is the cultural changes that's needed for the organization to fully embrace AI. Right? You can have great technical skills, but nobody embrace it. It's a waste of time and money. Right? What do I mean by cultural changes? I think there are 4 changes need to happen. Number one, awareness. Right? You don't know what you don't know. Right? We need to share with our colleagues what are the available AI tools and what's the capabilities of the tools. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the education program, which can also help to eliminate their fear of being replaced, right? The other important point for awareness is mindset. We should cultivate a growth mindset, believing that everyone can learn and encourage them to learn. The second change that needs to happen is accountability. I believe that the users of those AI tools should be actually accountable for the outcomes, right? Not just relying on the developers. Right? And third one is a tricky one. We need to be able to evaluate human-machine contribution, right? And it's use case specific, right? It's not easy, but we need to have that framework in place. And last but not least, we should demonstrate the benefit by showcasing successful AI use cases. I think this can help to build trust and also enthusiasm. Yeah.
Thanks, Echo. Previously, you mentioned during AI for investment, the quality of the data and the use of data to come to some of the conclusions or recommendations. How do you source and incorporate this data into your AI process?
So when it comes to data for AI specifically, we have an AI Leadership Council globally, and that council actually will set the guardrails with which we'll operate, right? When it comes to AI, data, and tech. We also have a centralized data engineering and platform team within investment. So this team is responsible for setting up appropriate data governance model, as well as integrating any data analytics into our investment operating model, right? We do work with our strategic partners, third-party vendors, to ensure that we can embed any new data in a secure and safe manner. I think the 2 key considerations when we look at data, not just for AI in general, right? For investment, one is depending on the use case, we'll always start looking at the breadth and depth of the data, what does it cover, and quality of it. And the second key consideration is whether we can integrate the data into our existing infrastructure.
Thank you, Echo. So once the data's in, you mentioned before actually that there's concerns about maybe a black box or something, and maybe I can turn this question to Harry. It's often described as a black box. for better or worse, and I guess it depends on the actual algorithm being applied. And at the very least, it's described as being opaque. To what extent is opacity an issue with AI, and what can be done from a supervisory perspective about this?
So I agree that one of the risks is indeed the lack of explainability. Given an input, you can't really decompose, you can't really figure out why the model gave a certain output, right? You can't decompose the drivers why. So from the various industry initiatives that industry players have initiated to better understand the AI risk, such as the release of the FEED principles and Project Mindforge, it is a well-established fact that transparency and explainability are key components of responsible use of AI. For those of you who don't know, FEED principles are a set of, meant to promote the fair, meant to promote, were released in 2018 to promote fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency in the use of AI here in Singapore, in the financial sector. And then Project Mindforge is something that we launched last year, again industry-led, really to look into examine the risk and opportunities associated with the use of Gen AI in financial services. So these two initiatives, I think, have given us a lot of information about how to manage such risk. I think Project Mindforge is particularly useful because it sets the stage. It lists out all the risks that are associated with AI and Gen AI. And then it allows the industry to focus their minds on finding solutions, such as guardrails, to manage these risks that have been surfaced. From conversations I've had since the release of the Mindforge paper, I think the black box nature of AI can be managed if you make an effort to develop a better appreciation of the output of the model, and then assess if that model is still fit for purpose. I think that these two steps are quite important. And how do you do that? You can do it via red teaming. Red teaming, you basically stress the model, give it a lot of inputs, give it scenarios that you a bit left field scenarios, see how it reacts, so that you kind of know the range of potential model outputs that you can expect to receive. For Gen AI type use cases, I think it's really about coming up with a range of prompts that also have different. You can do a lot of things. You can test if your Gen AI model has whether there are elements of unfairness or biasness. You can get a prompt, put out the same query, indicate that the profile of the user is a certain gender. For the same query, you would expect a similar response regardless of the gender of the inquirer. But these are things that you can do to stress test some of the AI models that are out there. More broadly, I think we've made this point a couple of times. It really is about making sure human is in the loop when you make decisions that depend on some AI input. We must recognize that AI is just a technology, and the accountability rests on the human and the firm that deployed the AI system in the first place. Then you had this question on the role of regulation and supervision. So I would say that AI adoption is still in an early stage, and the approach so far has been really to work very closely with the industry to better understand and better identify the risks that are out there. And also, once you identify and the risks that are out there, you can then work together to identify suitable risk mitigating measures, and controls and guardrails, like I said. Several of these industry-wide initiatives, some of which are industry-led, also facilitate knowledge exchange, sharing of best practices, which I think collectively raise the AI maturity of the industry as a whole. Yes, supervisors like us, regulators like us, MAS, we have a role. We have a role to also promulgate good practices, share, raise awareness, and then that again contributes to raising the maturity levels of the industry as a whole. Together, I think as the industry adoption of AI deepens, we can definitely fine-tune the approach. All in all, I think that the point that I would like to make is that the industry really has a very big role to play to shape the adoption and use of AI.
Thank you very much, Harry. That brings us to the end of the panel. I hope you've found something interesting and found some insights. I've certainly learned a lot. Please join me in a final round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Echo.